And again, I had an opportunity to speak at the rally yesterday. And this is something that I've done a previous video on. I spoke about an avenue to potentially give everybody in the United States Medicare for all. And in 2009, a community in Lincoln County, Montana, was poisoned by a vermiculite mine from the WC Grace Company. And this vermiculite mine put asbestosis, and basically poisoned everybody with asbestosis and mesothelioma and other lung-related illnesses. The senator at the time, the gentleman's name was Max Baucus, said, hey, look, there's a whole bunch of people in Lincoln County, Montana that are sick, they're dying, they have all these lung issues, breathing problems, they need help, they need medical care. So the Environmental Protection Agency issued what's called an emergency declaration. They said, you know what, this is a health emergency, this is a problem. We need to do something for these people because they are dying. They got infected with, they're suffering with asbestos and mesothelioma and other asbestos-related illnesses and respiratory problems. How can we help them? So what they did is they said, you know what? Oh, there's a section in the Affordable Care Act called Section 10323. And what we will do is we will go ahead and amend Section 1881A to include Medicare for all for anybody that has been affected with what is called an environmental exposure. So think about all the different environmental exposures that you come in contact with every day. Secondhand smoke is an environmental exposure. Air pollution is an environmental exposure. Pesticides are an environmental exposure. Exhaust from vehicles is an environmental exposure. BPA plastics are an environmental exposure. Airborne viruses are an environmental exposure, no different than mesothelioma or asbestos. Lead, whether it's lead contamination from paint or lead contamination from water, is an environmental exposure. So the friendly folks in Lincoln County, Montana, and Lincoln County, Montana is the furthest northwest county in Montana. It's bordered by Idaho on the west and the Kootenai region in British Columbia. If you know the Kootenays, you know towns like, there's like the Slocan Valley, Trail, Nelson, Castlegar, Salmo. If you've ever been to Shambhala Music Festival, that's where it takes place in Salmo, and that area is called the Kootenays. And just south of that is Lincoln County, Montana. That entire county has health care for the rest of their life. No questions asked. The entire county. Everyone there gets Medicare Part A, which is inpatient hospital coverage. They get Medicare Part B, which is outpatient medical coverage. They also get the opportunity to enroll in Medicare Part D, which is prescription coverage. And if your income meets the requirements, meaning you have low to no income, you can also qualify for a program called Extra Help. That is the name of the program, Extra Help. And Extra Help is a program that is paid for by Medicaid. And it says, hey, you know what? If you don't make enough money to pay for your Medicare Part D premiums or your co-payments, or your deductibles, or your co-insurance, we'll pay for that too. We'll pay for that too. So, and everybody in Lincoln County, Montana gets Medicare Part A and B and the opportunity to enroll in Medicare Part D prescription drug coverage for the rest of their lives. No questions asked. And if you've never worked a day in your life, and if you've never paid into Medicare or Medicaid, you also get the coverage. There's no waiting period. There's no age limits, no nothing. If you live in Lincoln County, Montana, and you had a lung or respiratory issue, Medicare for all, covered for the rest of your life. What I want to know is why there wasn't a single progressive or anybody, any members of Congress, all 538 of them, Not a single one of them said, hey, you know what? I live in Michigan. Or I live in Baltimore County, and I'm a representative of Baltimore County and Baltimore City, 7th District. And there's a whole lot of people on the west side of Baltimore that have lead issues, lead in the water and lead paint. That's an environmental exposure. All we need is an emergency declaration from the Environmental Protection Agency saying, hey, you know what? This is an emergency. Okay, Section 1881A, let's go for it. And what Section 1881A did or does, it creates a pilot program to give people in a specific area Medicare coverage. It opens a huge door for Medicare. So if you have a medical condition that is directly caused by an environmental exposure, all you need is an emergency declaration from the Environmental Protection Agency, and there's a specific act. It's the CECLRA, and I don't remember what the acronym stands for. But essentially, you need an emergency declaration. Once you get an emergency declaration because of this environmental exposure, Section 1881A. Why is nobody in the federal government trying this scenario to get Medicare for all in their jurisdictions? No one's trying this. No one's talking about this. No one in the House of Rep, none of the progressives said, hey, you know what? This Section 1881A thing looks like a really good idea. Let's try it. Let's go for it. Maybe I can get Medicare for all in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Ilhan Omar. Maybe I can get Medicare for all in the Roxbury projects of Boston, Massachusetts, Ayanna Presley. Maybe I can get Medicare for all for my people in New York, Jamal Bowman. Nobody even talked, none of them even mentioned this. None of them mentioned this. None of them mentioned, hey, you know what, let's go ahead and let's withhold our vote for Nancy Pelosi until she is willing to submit to some demands, real tangible demands. And it was one demand. It was hold your vote for Medicare for all. And it wasn't even, hey, let's go ahead and approve Medicare for all or do some Section 1881A stuff. It was, let's have a floor vote for it. They couldn't even give you the bare minimum. And the bare minimum wasn't enough. They could have said, hey, you know what? Nancy Pelosi, we're going to withhold our vote until you do these three things. Medicare for all, a federal jobs guarantee through a Green New Deal. Oh, and you see reparations for American descendants of enslaved people? We're going to go ahead and push through H.R. 40. Let's go ahead and get that on the books too. Because H.R. 40 has been sitting around a long time. And you know, us black people, we actually deserve reparations. Because if you're talking all this Black Lives Matter stuff from all this past summer, if you want to show us how Black lives actually matter, pay us the debt you owe us, black people. Do that. Because if you're talking about justice in the United States, a claim for justice must be made first through the lens of economics. That's how you get black lives to actually matter. So Nancy Pelosi, when you're in the halls of Congress with a kente cloth on one knee, but you can't give everybody health care, get the fuck out. I want all of them gone. All of them. All of them. They're a waste of time, they're a waste of energy, and they're a waste of taxpayers' money. Jordan Henry saying, right. Yeah. We have 4 crises that we are dealing with simultaneously in this country. We have a biological crisis, an economic crisis, a financial crisis, and a social/political crisis. We have a government that's not doing anything for any of us. What's up, Eric? Say, what's up, Joe? What's up, Eric? What's good, brother? And these politicians have such an easy job. Such an easy job. You talk to people you disagree with. You build political coalitions. You mainstream the consensus, and then you execute the consensus with policy. It's a politician's job. I'm going to say everything I just said to you once again. That way everybody understands how, quite honestly, how simple, but yet how not easy it is to actually do what I just said. You talk to people you disagree with. You build political coalitions. You mainstream consensus, and you execute the consensus via policy. That's a politician's job. And the politicians in the United States can't even do that. And we pay every one of them a minimum of $174,500 per year. If you have a little bit more seniority, you get a little bit more money. If you're Nancy Pelosi, you're making probably about $20 to $30,000 a year. If you're one of these politicians and you do some speaking engagements, you make some money off that. AOC speaking fees, I think, are now up to $100,000 per speaking engagement. You could sell merchandise and put that in your political action committees and pocket some of that for yourself. How else do you think that Nancy Pelosi becomes a centimillionaire off a $174,000 salary? Centimillionaire is a fancy word meaning that she's worth over $100 million.